working with the Paths tool. You can actually do some interesting things with just shapes and text in GIMP. But the fun comes when you start messing around with images. As you know from magazine covers and internet mashups and art projects, you can doctor up images, create wild collages, turn photos into posters or illustrations for graphic novels. Digital images are infinitely malleable. I'm going to show you some basic techniques essential to using GIMP creatively. Let's start with creating a Hootie the Owl avatar that combines a couple of images. As you can see, I've plopped stylized Hootie's head onto a stylized torso in a suit. To do something like this, you need to master a few tools, particularly the all-important Paths tool. I've opened up a picture of Hootie as the background. Then I'm going to add another image through selecting Open as Layers. I could also just drop the image onto the stage and saved it to a new layer. Now the new image layer is way too big. So I need to adjust the size by one of two methods. I can choose Layer, and scale the image. Or I can hit Shift and T on my keyboard. The latter is my preferred method as it allows me to gauge the size better than guessing the number of pixels. The first thing I want to do is to remove the background. Here we're in luck. The background's a solid color, so it's easy to use the magic wand tool to select the white color. You can then hit delete, but that tends to leave a thin line around a figure, in this case a thin white outline. To avoid this, you can hit select, grow, and grow the selection by 1 pixel generally. This will do wonders for a cleaner edge. You can also choose Select by Color, which operates not by contiguity, but by actual color. So I can select the color of the blue sleeves in this image and delete all that particular color in the layer. The blues do not have to be touching in this instance. But if you're isolating a figure from a complex background, neither of those techniques work very well. Instead, you need to use the Paths tool. Mastery of the Paths tool is really essential in GIMP and in other imaging editing programs such as Photoshop and Illustrator. You use the Paths tool in this case to draw an outline around the figure. You begin by adding anchor points, placing the connecting lines around the area you want to select. You can also click drag to create the path. Once you click and before you release, you will see the handles appear that will allow you to create curves, which is essential to creating good paths that conform to irregular contours. You then complete a circuit, eventually hooking an anchor to the initial anchor. If you've completed a circuit, right-click and choose Select from Path. This will make the selection, and then you can copy the image and place it on a new layer. If you were instead creating an irregular shape, you could fill it with a color instead. I encourage you to practice using the Paths tool. While it is possible to explain how the handles work, it's really not much help. It's better just to practice tracing complex shapes and using the handles. You should also consider zooming in on the image to become more precise. This will allow you to be much more accurate than working with an image in its normal resolution. Again, once I've selected the path, I simply copy and paste onto a floating selection. Then I add the selection to a new layer. Then I make the original image invisible and inspect how well I did with the paths. Often I have to touch up the selection with the eraser tool. Remember, you can change the size, hardness, brush type, and so on of your eraser. The easiest way to change the size is to use a keyboard shortcut. With the eraser selected, tap the left bracket key to enlarge the brush and the right bracket key to make the brush smaller. Again, you can also zoom in to be more precise. Naturally, a mouse is less precise than your hand, so you'll need some practice using a mouse to erase. You'll no doubt hit the undo many times as you're learning. One trick I've learned is to erase with short strokes, releasing the mouse after each stroke, or at least a handful of strokes. That way you can undo only those strokes, not all the erasing you've done. In other words, it's easy to slip up, so you want to avoid constantly starting over. You can also use the Paths tool to create a line upon which to place text and create a line. And we'll discuss how you do that in a later tutorial. Let me emphasize that the Paths tool can be a little awkward to learn at first, but you will soon be using it fluently. Without the Paths tool, you'll be limited in what you can create in GIMP.